Hi guys, welcome to Chariot Palmistry. Today we're going to be talking about the temple symbol. Now this is a sign that basically shows mastery. It could either be spiritual mastery or material mastery, but it's a sign of someone who spent a lot of hours and a lot of time dedicated to a single craft. It's also a sign of someone who actually builds a temple or dedicates a lot of their life to working in a charity of some sort. Now this is what the sign actually looks like. It appears most often in the middle of the hand, in between what's known as a headline or the heart line. They're the two horizontal lines running across the middle of your hand. When it appears over there, it's generally about 1 in 10 hands will have something like that over there. But there are other variations of this sign. And so, for example, if it appears under the index finger, then that's a sign of someone who's going to get lots of recognition and admiration from the community as a result of the charitable work that they do. If it points towards the middle finger, then that's someone who's going to build a charitable organization of some sort, but also, most likely, it's someone who's going to build like a reclusive spiritual retreat. More often than not, they do this for themselves and they don't get a lot of recognition for that sort of work. If the temple sign points towards the ring finger, which is under the influence of the sun, then that's somebody who'll get a lot of social recognition and actually a fair bit of success and fame for the work they do. If the temple is pointing towards the towards the Mercury finger or the little finger, then that's a sign of someone who's got a very strong entrepreneurial mind. They'll either start up a business of some sort that in turn will give a lot to charity or will help people in need. There's two variations to the temple sign. The first is when it points upwards and the other is where it points downwards. Now, a temple that points downwards is a sign of someone who starts working in a charity and then later on they start to actually build their own charity themselves. When it points upwards, then that's someone who starts to plan to build a charity but doesn't actually take action on those plans until many years later. And if you find someone who's got temples on both hands, always look at the right hand or their dominant hand. That's for right-handed people. And for left-handed people, you'd obviously look at the left hand. But the temple on the dominant hand will always show the course of action that the temple's going to take. The temple comes in a couple different shapes. Most of them are the ones that I've shown you already, but when they're misshapen, that means the energy with the temple is also fractured. So in this case here, for example, this is somebody who dedicates a lot of time working in a charity, but has never actually set one up themselves, nor do they plan to. This is another example of a variation of the temple, and again you can see it's not perfect squares or lined up perfectly in any way, but this person again spends a lot of their time volunteering at their local church. This is an interesting case. This hand has two temple formations. One is at the very bottom of the hand, and the other one is towards the middle of the hand. Now what happened with this lady was when she was very young, her parents moved away overseas. I think it was Africa somewhere. They actually built a church over there. And she, grew up in Africa to some degree. When she grew older, she came to Australia, but then in middle age, she went back to Africa and renovated the church her parents built and actually expanded it. So that's why she's got two different temples on her hand. It's actually the same project, but it's just manifesting itself twice. This is an interesting hand here too. So you can see that the temple is pointing downwards, away from the fingers. This was a lady who spent a lot of time volunteering at a spiritual and religious organization in India. After, I think, 10 or 15 years of doing this, they asked her to set up her own chapter here in this country, in Australia. And that's what she did. So they gave her all the resources she needed for it, and it was just something that fell into her lap. This is another interesting hand. So this one here has the temple, the tip of the temple under the pinky finger, and it's pointing towards the middle finger and also the ring finger there. Now this person set up a business and he only hires people who need work, basically people in poverty. So it's like a not-for-profit, but it's done in such a way that people who need income do get that through his business. So it's a charity, but not a temple, if that makes sense at all. Whenever you see a temple sign on someone's hand, also look for two other signs. The first is the fish, and that's a symbol of wealth and prosperity. The other sign that you should look for is also the swastika, and that's a sign of his higher spiritual calling. Alright guys, that's about all I can say about the temple sign. It is quite rare, so as I said, in the middle of the hand it occurs about 1 in 10 times. Anywhere else on the hand it occurs maybe 1 in 100 to 1 in 1,000 times. Now I have written a book on the different Indian palmistry symbols. If you'd like to learn more, you can go to Amazon and put in these details over here. Otherwise, you can check out our website at www.chariotpalmistry.com and you can learn all about palmistry symbols and other palmistry techniques over there. Thank you.